Hi everyone, welcome to this video. My name is T. If you're new here, I really do hope everyone's day is going well. Before we start, let's go ahead and address the big old elephant in the room. This video is not part 2 of my last video, Hypersexuality and the Perfect Pussy Complex. It's just not. Part 2 of that video will be up in eventually. But seriously, I do have a couple videos such as this one that are a little bit more time sensitive than part 2. So I just wanted to go ahead and push those out and then we'll circle back. And honestly, the sequence that I have those videos lined up in, I really think y'all gonna with it. So just trust the process. Just trust it. On to today's video. So as I'm sure we all know by now, Beyonce's highly anticipated 7th studio album, Renaissance, is here. And it's been here for 2 months. I've been waiting to talk about this album for a while, but I didn't want to come out with my thoughts on it, boom, a week or a couple days after the album dropped, basically because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't riding dick. Not that I would be ashamed or anything. When it comes to Beyonce, dick riding is my favorite mode of transportation. And you're not gonna take that away from me. But in this instance, it's different. I didn't want to be encouraged by the hype. I didn't want to be encouraged by the potential money I could have made from riding off of said hype, because it would have been a lot. I love this album, and I loved it almost immediately because it is just so unapologetically blissful. And I don't think we have ever heard Beyonce like this before. And the fact that she chose disco, a genre that has lied dormant for the past few decades, not only does that speak to her influence to still see massive success with a choice like that, but it really speaks to how intentional she is with her craft, because if there's one genre that can commemorate such unwavering self-acceptance, it's this one. So yeah, I love this album, love this album, but even a simple observation like that didn't come to me overnight. I had to give this album a chance to essentially love me back, and to impact me enough that I genuinely felt equipped to discuss it in the critical nature that I will today. Let me be clear that the goal of this video is not to take away from the bliss and the joy and the spirit of dance that this album embodies, but to give the same amount of attention and energy to the things that I, as both a Black pop culture commentator and a lifelong Beehive member, find controversy and complication in, because I would do it for anybody else. So for me to pretend like I don't see what I see and I don't hear what I hear just because it's Beyonce, fake as fuck. And that is not what y'all came for. On this channel, as y'all know, I talk a lot, a lot. And one of the many ways I like to put action behind all of this chatting is by utilizing one of my greatest powers as a US citizen, voting. And it's been impressively easy for me to stay on top of that with the help of today's sponsor, Climate Power. One of the most pressing matters we're facing right now is the climate crisis. And thankfully, the Inflation Reduction Act has been put into law, which means the biggest climate investment in US history has promised to ramp up the production of American-made clean energy, address long-standing environmental injustice, and set us on a path to cut climate pollution 40% by 2030. Now, the Inflation Reduction Act is a starting point, but it is far from perfect. Making it a priority to vote in November is a way to keep building momentum for environmental progress. So, if you're a US citizen who is at least 18 years old, you, just like me, can commit to being a climate voter by visiting votefuture.org to check your registration and find your polling place. And if you can't make it in person, many states offer early voting or mail-in options. Either way, vote like your voice matters, because it does. And of course, thank you to Climate Power for sponsoring this portion of today's video. Chapter 1, be fucking for real. There is one song that I feel sets the tone for the entire album, and it really gives us a sneak peek into the steez that Beyonce brought with her in the studio while she was recording it. And in many ways, I feel it served as a declaration of complicated truth for both the listener and Beyonce herself. And that is track number 1, I'm That Girl.
Not the diamonds, not the pearls. I'm that girl.
She said, I pull up in these clothes look so good, 'cause I'm in that hoe. You know, all these songs sound good, 'cause I'm on that hoe, dead ass. She said that. Beyonce said that. Alright, let's get into it. I'm That Girl leads in with a sample from the song Still Pimpin' by Tommy Wright III and Princess Logo. It came out in 1995, song older than me, and it was an immediate Memphis classic. So I heard, like I said, I wasn't born. It's before my time.
And I don't know nothing about this. That's before my time.
Alright, this song, both sonically and symbolically, have a lot of themes that are reminiscent of that deep South Southern feel. She immediately negates 4 of the most popular attempts that have been used to discredit her for literal decades at this point. The lyrics read, "It's not the diamonds, it's not the pearls, I'm that girl. It's not my man, it's not my stands, I'm that girl." Now that first line is pretty self-explanatory. That second line though, "It's not my man, it's not my stands," pressure. Especially that "my man" part, because someone mentioned this in the comments of my baby mama bias video. So in the first chapter of that video, I talk about how the term baby mama is negatively charged at Black women with insinuations of insignificance, nuisance, greed, scheming ass, scamming ass, greedy ass Black women, in which the baby mama will stop at nothing to just take from the father of her child, whether that's his happiness, his attention, his money. I use the example of Condola and Lawrence from the hit show Insecure. So for a little context, Condola is a character who is a very successful woman. She owns her home, expansive kitchen. Y'all know how much I love that kitchen. An entrepreneur, just, all around, all about her business. And she has a baby with Lawrence, who at that time had just gotten promoted, was just really seeing that boss man type of money, but he still had the nerve to insinuate that Condola was using the baby as a means to drain him and force sacrifices on his life. As if her having the baby, y'all, as if her having the baby, specifically with Lawrence, was at any sole benefit to her. And then someone in the comments said, look, when people started saying that Beyoncé married Jay-Z for his money, that's when I knew that the greedy, freeloading Black woman stereotype, it doesn't even need to have any leg to stand on. That's just people's comfort zone for real. Now let's keep going with this train of thought, okay? Beyoncé married Jay-Z for his money. As a woman, what's most frustrating to me is not really the accusation itself, because while it's unnecessary and a little rude, it's not impractical. People marry for money all the time. What's most upsetting is the neglect of the reciprocal and the discussion of all that Jay-Z gained from marrying her. Marrying Beyoncé was the best thing Jay-Z could have ever done for his public image. I imagine that if they were never married or never even dated, we would look at Jay-Z the same way we look at like Puffy or Dr. Dre, P. Diddy, whatever. Not in terms of the music, because their music did not exactly do the same things, but if Jay-Z didn't have no affiliation with Beyoncé whatsoever, I don't think we would even be talking about his music. Just like we don't talk about Puffy's music or Dr. Dre's music, right now at least. This is not to erase any of their cultural significance. Like, once upon a time, the music did what it did when it did it, and from time to time, it still does it even today. Jay-Z's music, I'm not gonna pretend like it's irrelevant or that shit don't go. Some of that shit go. But look, it's been many years since Jay-Z's music has been at its commercial prime. That's why when we think of Jay-Z, rapper comes second. Billionaire boss man comes first. Yeah. Rock Nation brunches come first. Think about it. We don't give a fuck about Ciroc brunches, do we? Do we? And I'm sure they have brunches over there all the time. Are Ciroc brunches an event on Twitter like Rock Nation brunches are? Let me do you one better. Can we even name 2 or 3 of the business ventures that P. Diddy or Dr. Dre have taken to multiply their wealth? Do we even know how these men got as rich as they are? But when it comes to Jay-Z, we can certainly say Tidal. We can say he has some dealings with the NFL. Wasn't he involved in some sort of weed startup? Rock Nation, he was an owner of the Nets once, right? So many things. Why? Why do you think that the moves Jay-Z makes has more cultural relevance than his peers? Why do you think that is? Because when we checking for him, we really checking for somebody else. Where is your wife? Where is your wife? Thank you for the streaming service. Thank you for the cannabis. Where is your wife? Because I know she around here somewhere. And that's because what? Beyonce tells us in her next verse, from the top of the morning I shine right through the blinds, touching everything in my plain view, and everything next to me gets lit up too. You see it. You see it when you look to me. I didn't want this power. I didn't want this power. Oh, end quote. End quote. The power of Beyonce. She toys a little more with this topic, more in the song America Has a Problem, also on this album, where she flips the metaphor from the original song by Kilo Ali. So in Kilo's song, he symbolizes the drug as a woman. In Beyonce's song, she symbolizes herself as a drug in general, just as an addictive. She centers her husband's desire for her to make it a little bit more flirty, but it doesn't stop there. I have a strong feeling that the song is called America Has a Problem because Jay-Z is not the only addict. America does have a Beyonce problem. The whole world does. I think it's time we take some responsibility for the power we have given Beyonce, collectively, as a human race. We have to take some accountability for the amount of importance we have given to this one woman. There is no way she could have done this by herself. No way she could have done this with just a fan base. The importance that Beyonce has in this world requires years, decades worth of molecular obsession with a singular human being. She could not have done this alone. And you don't even have to like her. That's the thing. There's a certain passion that awakens in people when you give them the floor to share their thoughts about Beyonce. And whether they love her, hate her, somewhere in the middle, or are completely indifferent, they tend to have quite a lot to say about it. And no matter what they say, it draws in a crowd. Merely speaking the name of Beyonce calls attention to a person that they probably otherwise would not have gotten. She could not have done this alone. All right, so we get to the next part. Freaking on a weekend. Yeah, okay. First of all, this album has been praised for its beautiful transitions in between songs, but I gotta say, I think the transitions within songs are also pretty damn amazing, especially the one in this specific song, because it goes from like this light, airy feel. She's still talking her shit, still very much talking that talk, but she really glides through the words, making it for a very delicate delivery. And then she switches. Freaking on a weekend, I'm indecent, let it begin. Okay, now here is where the song really gets deep, I think. She says, I be pulling up in that 92 DeVille Cadillac with them folks losing my mind. BBB stin, un-American, I don't need no friends. I've been, you know what? Let me let her sing it because I really like how it escalates. Off the deep end, such a heathen, why they let me outside? I pull relief in. Okay. There are 3 themes here. 3 themes she's mentioning in these few bars, and I believe they are wealth, blackness, and Americanness. Specifically, Southern Americanness. Yeah. All 3 of which the world has tried its damn hardest to convince us do not belong together. Yet, those are the 3 core aspects of Beyonce's public image. If there's 3 things you know about Beyonce, it's that she's rich as fuck, she's black, and she's a Southern American woman. I mean, who could forget that Beyonce is really just a country girl at heart, right? Ain't that what y'all use to say that the lady can't read or talk? Equating Southern accents with illiteracy, I see. Sounds like a microaggression, but we move. At the forefront of Beyonce's political image is her wealth. I would say even before her blackness. Beyonce and Jay-Z definitely use imagery of black radicalism for profit. And Kim Foster said this too. A lot of imagery, you know, some sound bites of black radicalists in their work, but all of that, none of that means that they are practicing actual black radicalism at all. And that's evident. Because if they were actually as radical as the Black Panthers, a la Beyonce's 2018 Super Bowl performance, if they were actually as radical as Malcolm X or Fred Hampton per multiple Jay-Z lyrics, Beyonce and Jay-Z would know that they would be the enemy. Because the black liberation that those people in groups, Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, the Black Panthers, the liberation that they stood for was light years ahead of Black opulence, light years ahead of celebrating Beyoncé for something like being the first Black woman to ever wear the Tiffany diamond in 2021. What? No, because that actually pissed me off so bad. 2021, at this point in the game, no company should ever be proud of saying that they're having the first insert marginalized group here doing anything. Like, y'all should have already covered your first a good 5 to 10 years ago. And there is no way that Fred Hampton, there was no way he would be singing her praises and congratulations for being the face of a company whose products are so high in price that most Black people can't even afford it. If the Black radicals I just mentioned were still alive, the way Beyonce and Jay-Z move would not go over lightly with them, which is why it doesn't go over lightly with the Black radicals of today. This is a great example of Now that's what I'm talking about. This is a great example of how the Carters, Rihanna, Kanye, Oprah, really just about any Black billionaire uses their race as social capital. From the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, social capital is defined as the links, shared values, and understandings in society that enable individuals and groups to trust each other and work together. I understand using race as social capital as using your race as a tool to deem you more trustworthy to others. This is very similar to like identity politics and that. Now, even for someone like myself who does not trust easily, if you're Black, especially if you're a Black woman, I am more inclined to trust your intentions based on the assumption that your products, your ideas, your art, whatever, have centered the interests that are to the advantage of Black people. Therefore, center the interests that are to the advantage of me. Now, that is obviously not always the truth. I really got to work on that. But it is an effective marketing tactic that has been used by the Black elite for so many years at this point. Mega wealthy Black stars are constantly aligning themselves with pro-Black imagery. See, actions like that lead many of us to believe that these people want to see the same changes made to this broken system that we do. But at a certain point, after amassing that type of wealth, not only do the interests of the artist and their audience grow worlds apart, but one interest is at the literal detriment to the other. Yet we'll allow these artists to not only use their race as a link to us, but as justification for the power imbalances that they actively perpetuate. But they, the Carters, they protect that shit. They defend it, shamelessly so. And that is where a distinct line in the sand is drawn between Beyoncé and most Black people. And I know someone's gonna be like, are you trying to say that all Black people are poor? Yes! Obviously, not every single one of us individually, but demographically, absolutely. According to Pew Research Center, the median household income for Black households in 2019 is $44,000, which means half of households headed by a Black person earn more than that and half earn less. So when it comes to Black people in, let's say, Houston, who actually are driving a 1992 Cadillac DeVille, and it is their primary mode of transportation, it's not just a toy. While that is a classic car, so it comes with respect from the community, sure, at the end of the day, if someone is driving a 30-year-old vehicle by way of necessity, it is more than likely because they're broke. Because the majority of Black Americans are fucking broke. But in the song, Beyonce says she pulling up in that. She pulling up in the 1992 Cadillac DeVille with the Vogues, which I assume are sunglasses. What the fuck are you doing, Beyonce? Losing her mind, just like she said. She is out of her mind wearing these sunglasses where the lenses are probably worth quadruple the price of that Cadillac. But the juxtaposition of these two elements tie her to both cultures. She is tied to her Southern roots through the 92 Cadillac DeVille because of what it symbolizes in Black Southern hip hop culture. Y'all know that song, Tipping on Fofos. The Mike Jones joint? Yeah. Why would they put them old ass cars in there in a song where you trying to flex and why they put in them old ass why? Because for those cars, what they lack in monetary value, they make up for in cultural significance. And then Beyonce, she's in these Vogues, these presumably preposterously priced Vogues. And she's tied to that culture too, right? She's also tied to a culture of extremely obnoxious wealth. Beyonce, at this point in her life, has no relatability to Black people when it comes to struggles of poverty, struggles of poor environments, anything like that. But at the end of the day, she's a Black woman from Houston who feels close enough to that deep Southern Black culture that she still has to remind us every single chance she get that, you know, she got hot sauce in her bag, that she be patting her weave, right? Just all of these little things to emphasize that before she was the Beyonce, she was a Black girl from Houston, likely very close to this culture. But she also recognizes that the hot sauce in the bag and patting her weave, that's likely the only link she got. Moving on to the un-American part, she says, I've been thugging for my un-American life lights in these D-flawless skies. I didn't even know what D-flawless was before I heard this song. So D-flawless is apparently the highest possible quality and color of a diamond. I don't know if she meant skies as in class elevation, or if she literally meant clear skies that you would see yachting in Capri. But it makes her un-American because just off the strength that she is Black, America believes that she does not fit the archetype of a true American who deserves that kind of wealth and success. But either way, she has it. She's like, I fought for it. I fought for all the money I have. I've been thugging. I pushed my mind and my body to its creative limits time and time again. Such a heathen. Why they let me outside? I pull relief in. Wow. She is sucking herself off with that line. And yes, Beyonce works hard. She works so hard. Jay-Z works hard, so hard. Rihanna, Kanye, most definitely harder than their white billionaire counterparts. But all of that hard work does not make them deserving of the right to oppress others. First and foremost, pay your damn workers. Word to Ismatu Gwendolyn. She has a podcast episode coming soon diving way deeper into this. But there's no reason why, allegedly, the workers in Asia sewing together the clothes for your clothing line can't even afford a piece on a month's worth of wages. There's no reason for that. There's no reason why, allegedly, you're running around preaching the word of God to advance your music career, but the choir who makes your performance lively gotta sue you because you don't even pay them enough to throw a little something in the collection plate. In a remix to another one of Ismatu Gwendolyn's quotes, I can give libations to the creatives who inspire me and grieve when they are so utterly disappointing and hypocritical. Nevertheless, I doubt any of the things I'm saying or any of the feelings I have are lost on these Black billionaires. Highly, highly doubt it. But I am so far beyond the point of trying to get Black billionaires to see that, Negro or not, they too are fucking shit up for the rest of us. So when Beyonce continues with the lyrics, cleanse me of my sins, I can't do that. It's really up to us to decide for ourselves what contradictions we choose to ignore and forgive. And I'm still working through that myself, clearly. Oh my gosh, do you think it's easy for me to stand here and be so hard on the woman whose art has literally been the soundtrack to my entire life? I mean my entire life. Literally, Destiny's Child's first single came out the year before I was born. I have literally never known a world without Beyonce playing in the background. You name any Beyonce song off the top of your head right now, I can tell you how old I was when I first heard it, how old I was when the lyrics truly resonated with me, where I was mentally, emotionally, physically, and how it helped shape the overall person I am today. So this is not just a regular critique. For me, this is a fucking challenge. So it's unfair for me to try and make the final verdict on billionaires' existence is harmful, so we shouldn't support the art that makes them even more wealthy. Because music for many is an essential part of happiness, and happiness is an essential part of survival. So on the question of should we continue to enjoy and be inspired by this music, I truly cannot say yes or no. But what I can say is the most futile and useless and disappointing results come from us conflating privilege with enlightenment. Elitism for adept leadership. Candace Mallet for Teen Vogue wrote, when there are Black-led uprisings, the primarily white ruling class seems to get nervous. Since there's no real desire to redistribute their wealth, they look for other concessions that could quell the revolt. The Black elite then, become the anointed speakers for the Black race, despite not having a full understanding of why the unrest is happening or what regular people truly want. And because there is a notion in the US that success equals leadership and knowledge, the Black elite then become political leaders. But political leaders they are not, and they truly should not try to be. Chapter 2. Be liberated. Coming in at number 2 for most loaded song, most symbolic song on Renaissance, which honestly is a lot more loaded than the last track, but only if you go looking for it. And given the subject matter of this song, Beyoncé knew. She just knew this would get him talking. She knew that this would have him crying, pissing, and throwing up. And that's track number 7, Church Girl. One of disco music's long-lasting effects is its impact on American sexuality. So it makes perfect sense why this modern disco album is as sexed up as it is. It's just sex all over the place. Everything is busted this, hike it in the air that. She all up in our ears, moaning and groaning and carrying on. Call it extra, call it whatever you want, but Beyoncé is certainly staying true to the core principles that make disco. What makes the song Church Girl so special is she is talking about sexuality, yes, nothing new, but beyond the scope of being a sexual partner, beyond being desired, beyond desiring someone else. She's seemingly sharing a personal account of her journey to becoming so in touch with her sexuality. So she tells the story of a church girl who finally decided to let it go and drop it like a thotty at a party, and as a result, feels the freest she's ever felt. We must clearly identify the perspective that this song was written from, okay? So a church girl is not simply a young lady who goes to church. In this context, a church girl is a young woman, a young Black woman, either just entering adulthood or very, very, very close, who grew up in the Black church. Ooh. As always, we cannot glide over the racial aspect because 1, that's all Beyoncé can relate to, and 2, the viewership of Black women's sexuality, especially in evangelical contexts, have a very uniquely terrible history. I have not been active in the church for well over a decade, and I recognize the gaps in my understanding because of that, which is why inviting someone like Donna on the show, okay, Oprah. Inviting on today's guest was super important because he is both a theologian and a believer, which equips him to speak from both a personal and educational perspective. Being on the topic of Black women's bodies, can you tell me a bit of how you were taught to view the Black woman's body in church?
I was taught to view a Black woman's body as a threat to my salvation. It was a source of temptation that if I happened to glance at a Black woman's body and it wasn't covered up, or if it wasn't existing in a way that the church would deem to be modest and pure, that it would be a threat to my salvation. It would cause me to stumble. I was taught that a Black woman's body was reserved for a man. So any inclination I would have to talk to or look at a woman in a way that caused me to be attracted to her, or whatever the case may be, it was a threat to her future husband's relationship with her. And these are some of the reasons why unlearning that piece about women's bodies in the church was one of the challenging things in my deconstruction journey, because it was so heavily taught. Like, it seemed like every other Sunday, even if the message wasn't about women, always came back to what women need to be doing, why women aren't getting married, why they're not meeting the standard that the church has set for them.
Church Girl leads in with a sample from the song Center Thy Will by the legendary Clark sisters, also known as the First Ladies of Gospel. Elbernita Twinkie Clark sings the vocals that we hear on Church Girl. The lyrics read, "Lord, place me. Lord, place me. I want to be centered. I want to be centered. I want to be centered in thy will." Wow. What a way to begin a song. Because the definition of God's will varies depending on which believer you ask. As both a theologian and someone who grew up in the church, how would you define God's will?
I think, in short, that God's will is love. And I'm talking about like radically inclusive, indiscriminate, justice-centered love. I grew up hearing in the church that God is love, right? And I also grew up hearing that in order for people to recognize that we are followers of Jesus or followers of Christ, that we have to show love one to another. But I wasn't seeing that practiced in a real way, because whenever there was, a conflict around sexuality, around women's bodies, around etc., it was demonstrated to me that we're not really practicing this love thing that we're talking about. When I think of sin too, sin meaning to miss the mark. What is the mark? Love to me is that mark. And if one of the goals of our spirituality is to become more like God or become more divine, it would only make sense to me that the will of God would be for us to align ourselves with love and ideologies that help us to love other people better, love ourselves better, love the planet that we inhabit better, etc.
The lyrics of centering God's will is super important because I believe they signify that Beyonce's relationship with God is a personal one. And this presumption is not brought on just by those few lyrics. Beyonce in the past has described her relationship with God as personal, intrinsic, one that lives inside her, which is already radical in and of itself because based on my experience, churchgoers encourage you to seek community with other believers. What harm, if any, do you see in the unspoken rule of church for churchgoers to obey the rules of human figures in the church over forming their own private, personal relationship with God?
There are a couple of harms in that. And I think one is the control aspect of it, and the other is uniformity. I think a colonized religion will say that everyone needs to be practicing faith in the same exact way. Everyone needs to believe in the same things and have a level of uniformity when it comes to practicing the Christian faith. But I think that what's more important than that is practicing your faith in a way that's personal to you, because everyone has a different context, has different experiences. There's a level of appreciation that can come from recognizing the beauty in their differences.
So with Beyonce asking to be centered in God's will, she is asking to be centered in what God wants for her life. And you can see how something like that would be very difficult for people to digest, because that could easily be interpreted as Beyonce wants a new set of rules, or she wants to be the exception to the rules that already exist. Rules like modesty and straying from sexual immorality and lust, which, as we know, Beyonce's public image is the exact opposite of that, right? For nearly the entirety of her career, her image has been dressed in sex appeal, dressed in lust. And to make matters even worse for the poor lady, because her sex appeal is so effective and alluring in tandem with her talent, which has made her so wealthy, because of all these things, people dead think she's a devil worshiper. That is my theory.
Unless you're checking all the boxes of Christianity that is in the confines of evangelicalism, you're not considered a real Christian. So Beyonce, even referencing God in her interviews, talking about how she knows that God is real and that, her experiences with music came from growing up in a church and being in choirs and singing. And that's where she first fell in love with music. I think that Beyonce's personal relationship with God or the divine directly conflicts with kind of oppressive, more rigid views of what it means to be a Christian. And the whole Illuminati thing. When I was growing up, I would be watching YouTube videos about the Illuminati, till 2:00 in the morning, seeing all of my favorite celebrities, talking about symbolism.
It was a disheartening time.
It was a disheartening time. There was this moment in time where we were kind of condensing all celebrities, especially Black celebrities, as having sold their soul to the devil, as having signed some sort of blood contract to get their riches or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I think that definitely has infiltrated our understandings and still impacts our understanding of Black celebrities, and especially with people like Beyonce, whose music speaks to a lot of spiritual themes. And Beyonce's image is a direct affront to what the church has always taught about purity and sexual morality.
Beyonce has publicly expressed her Christian faith for the entirety of her career. She has on multiple occasions denounced any of that Illuminati stuff. But because of the way Black women's sexuality is viewed in the church, people use that as ammunition to say that she deserves eternal damnation. And if I were her, I'd be sad about that too. The lyrics read, "I've been up, I've been down, feel like I moved mountains, got friends that cried fountains." We don't give church girls enough credit for the confusion they must feel to be in a place like church where they feel safe, they feel loved, they feel joy, but that also being the same place where they maybe feel humiliated, they feel judged, they're scolded for their bodies. The chorus leads in, I'm warning everybody, soon as I get in this party, I'm gonna let go of this body. I'm gonna love on me. That seems like a double entendre. Now, colloquially, letting go of your body means to, let loose and get jiggy with it. But also in this song, the church girl is letting go of the body that has been turned into a projection board of sorts, of which humiliation, shame, etc. has been thrown onto. And that release expresses itself through dance. Nobody can judge me but me. I was born free, the lyrics read. She also says, we got church in the morning, but you're doing God's work. You're going in. Many people took issue with this lyric as well, as they felt it was disrespectful to mention the name of God in the same sentence that she's talking about salacious activity. Oh, see, that's tricky. That one's tricky for me. Firstly, I feel that it speaks volumes that such weaponry has been attached to a Black woman's body, that the mere mentioning of it existing in a way that is not of service to another person, be that the service of sex to her husband or the service of birth to a child, could be interpreted as disrespect to an entire religion. I feel like if Beyoncé sees the will of her life to be happy and free, and in expressing that, she feels even closer to her faith, I just don't see how disrespect could be found unless you are viewing her body as inherently sinful to begin with. What threat does women rejecting the Christian extremist view of bodies pose to the church, if any?
I think what's actually threatening the church is its refusal to adapt to a more liberatory spirituality. It seems like the church really wants to cling to power and control, and in so doing, it's rejected any belief that kind of threatens that power and control. So women rejecting oppressive ideologies about their bodies is just one way that folks are experiencing spiritual liberation, and because they're coming to recognize the harm that these ideologies have done to them in their lifetimes. And I think that's one of the reasons why Beyoncé wrote the song Church Girl, because she knows and has experienced and has lived that experience of being a Black church girl and being taught about her body and being taught to cover it up and being taught that her body was inherently a threat to the salvation of men. I don't think that women rejecting fundamentalist views about their body and rejecting purity culture, I don't think it has to be a threat to the church. But if the church is unwilling to adapt and lean into love, I think it will get left behind and become obsolete.
I definitely don't believe that a song like Church Girl encourages all Black women who go to church to be their quote-unquote authentic selves through sexuality. Because as I hope to discuss in part 2 of that one video, sexuality does not automatically equal freedom. I know it's kind of been commercialized that way, but that's not quite how it goes. And a woman's connection to her sexuality will not magically dissolve misogyny internally or externally. But for some people, like some church girls, when your sexuality is forcefully distanced from you before you can even become familiar with it, when they finally come back in connection with it, being so outwardly expressive as Beyoncé is describing in this song is almost necessary. And I don't think they should be held back from expressing that just because some people don't like it or may misinterpret it.
I do have a comment that I want to make about the song Church Girl. Towards the end where Beyoncé, at the last words of the song being, I'm not trying to hurt nobody, I'm trying to bring the life back in your body. I just thought that was so powerful. Her putting that at the end of the song was kind of like I'm not trying to cause harm. I'm doing this to actually bring life and bring peace and bring alignment for women across the world who are navigating these kind of fundamentalist, oppressive ideologies that they've been holding on to their whole lives. And those ideologies have restricted them and caused them to feel a sort of disconnect with their own bodies and feel like their body doesn't belong to them. So I think the song Church Girl was a great kind of reintroduction to oneself, and it was an open invitation for people to lean into their bodies and to love their bodies and to accept their bodies and to move their bodies in ways that that can help set them free.
Chapter 3, be intentional. Disco cannot survive without 3 things. 1, sexuality. So get over it. And the other 2 would be blackness and queerness. We cannot decentralize queerness when talking about disco because not only was influence drawn from the community, but when the AIDS epidemic hit and took so many queer lives, that played a significant role in the downfall of disco. So when we're talking about a renaissance, a resurgence, a re-emergence of this genre, we cannot, under any circumstances, exclude queerness. And one of the queerest songs on this album is Heated. Heated is not the queerest song on the album. I'm gonna go ahead and give that to Pure Honey, and then probably Summer Renaissance comes in at a very close second. But it's something about that Heated. It's something, specifically the outro, because that's all we talking about today. Ooh, let me emphasize that. I am not talking about anything Beyoncé says prior to the 3-minute mark. But when we finally get there, it is immediately clear that this song is gay, especially when she absolutely blacks out on that yada 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 bon bon ka ka. So incredibly queer, but not just any queer. This is ballroom scene queer. This is voguing queer. Mother of the house queer. Ballroom is a culture that has always been impactful and influential and has been referred to as a place where authentic Black queer disco can continue to live on even after its death in the mainstream. Even in the face of poverty, the AIDS epidemic, racial tension, transphobia, homophobia, and a slew of other discriminations, this is an iconic culture, a prosperous culture, but is only just now in recent years seeing mainstream success. And while mainstream success means that the culture is getting the attention it has always deserved, it also means that the culture is now profitable. And where something is profitable, it's exploitable. So I'm sure you can understand why my reflex is to question the integrity of this song's objective, to question Beyoncé's intentions. The Black queer community has always supported Beyoncé, and to my knowledge, she has never said or done anything even slightly questionable. Like every comment she's made, feature, magazine cover, everything has just aged beautifully over the years. But is that enough to say with certainty that this song is a result of her submerging herself in the culture enough that the words that she's shouting in this song are coming from a place of honor, of admiration, of education, and not just her writing off of what's popular? It's a fair enough question, especially considering this would not be Beyoncé's first time aligning her music with something radical conveniently around the same time that it's picking up traction, popularity, and profitability. In the self-titled era, she was standing in front of the big feminism sign, having a Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie quote in her song, conveniently around the same time fourth wave feminism was taking off and being highlighted on social media in a way we had never seen before. In the Lemonade era, she was putting Malcolm X sound bites in the visuals and dressing her crew up as the Black Panthers for the 2018 Super Bowl. Conveniently around the same time that protests against police brutality were on 10, and Colin Kaepernick was going through what he was going through. And on this album, she's talking about, I just quit my job, I'm gonna find new drive, you can't break my soul. Again, conveniently, 2 years into a pandemic of which she did not feel the financial devastation of which she did not have to risk her health and safety or sanity to keep the lights on. So things have historically lined up very conveniently for Beyoncé when it comes to profiting off of progressive movements after they've already taken off. And it's extremely questionable. But at the same time, I have to be empathetic and honest in recognizing that the same thing could be said about me. It is in the nature of my work to discuss very, very serious topics while it's still hot on social media. And people would be justified to challenge whether or not I actually care or if I'm just seizing the opportunity to profit off of people's outrage. Now, I can say with certainty that I am extremely passionate about the topics I discuss. Whether I was on YouTube or not, I would be finding a way to talk about them, even if it was just with a group of friends. But considering I gotta keep the bills paid, there is absolutely strategy involved in all of this, okay? In the timing, in the scripting, in the thumbnails, in what I wear in the videos, in the time that I post, from top to bottom. Strategy, strategy, strategy. So based on the very few things that my career has in common with Beyonce's, it's fair to speculate, right? It's fair to question intentions, but we are not equipped to draw a hard final conclusion just yet. What we can do, however, is ask ourselves, does our desire to feel closer to these artists or celebrities cause us to conflate things like strategic relatability marketing, which this entire album very much could be, with genuine, honorable allyship? Given how private of a celebrity she is, Beyoncé has probably helped so many queer people, has probably contributed so much to the queer community in ways that will probably never see the light of day. And I will not take that possibility away from her. But I just know that the title of ally was given to her long before she ever deserved it. I just know it was. Because that's what we always do. We cling to the tiniest bit of relatability that we see in celebrities. One little dusty rainbow flag that they post once a year every June for Pride Month. One little yes queen on Twitter. And suddenly, all of a sudden, we deem them as people we can trust will protect and defend the community in times of crisis. When the hell did they promise that? I saw a tweet that said, the thing about being an ally is that you are required to declare war once the people you're allied with are attacked. Otherwise, you're just a spectator. It is perfectly okay for us to admit that some of our faves are spectators with hella followers and hella money at best. And it's perfectly honest to admit that we celebrate them for that. We celebrate them for the bare fucking minimum because we want to feel closer to them. We want to feel like the people we love us back. But if we want real allies, we have to demand that they take this shit seriously. Like, for real, for real. Seriously enough that they're damn near insufferable for it. Because that's how we see real change. When Beyoncé releases the visuals for this album, it'll likely include a lot of queer performers and will likely be nominated for an Emmy. You know what an ally would do? If and when the Emmy is awarded, an ally would use that acceptance speech to demand justice for the lost lives of queer folks like Moi Renee, who is also featured on this album, as well as the countless other queer folks who are known to be in constant danger, constantly being violently targeted for their sexual identity. But when their bodies end up at the bottom of a river, their deaths are conveniently ruled a suicide. An ally would dedicate that award to the trans kids who are being denied healthcare, who are being bullied in school right now, facing an unthinkable level of dehumanization at the hands of their classmates, teachers, administration, etc. An ally would highlight the devastating irony in 2021 being both the mainstream peak for ballroom culture and the deadliest year on record for trans people. I would love to see Beyoncé do something like that, even if it's in her own way. It is fully and 100% okay for queer people to be vocal about these expectations, because I think a lot of the time we're told to approach progression within, we'll just take what we can get type of attitude. Fuck that. Multiple things can be true at once. We can be grateful for the platform that Beyoncé has given the culture, ballroom culture, disco, and queerness in general, and still be firm in our expectation to be appreciated and uplifted beyond commercialization. Because if all these celebrities care about is the profitability of our aesthetic, then they're still looking at us like some freak shows. They're still looking at us like a circus. And ain't no amount of song sampling or telling us how much you love the show Pose gonna change that. Nevertheless, I still would like to believe that everything I'm saying right now is already in the works. Like, I'd love to believe that the queer appeal on this album was a matter of celebration and not exploitation. And that the timing of this album's release was just merely an, okay, I love y'all, but I gotta look out for me too type of thing, because that's fair. Like I said, I can relate to that. But either way, as much as I love Beyoncé down, I am not calling her no kind of ally until there is hardcore proof that she gonna go to war for it. And that's it. That's Renaissance. To me. Thank you all so much for watching this video, especially if you made it all the way to the end. And I want to go ahead and apologize for the frames here. These are not non-reflective, and plus I got this big ass glass window behind me, so I just know it's been a little bit tricky to see my eyes. But I mean, what can I say? Is we talking disco or is we talking disco? I'm committed. Big thank you to Donnell Wrights for being in conversation with me in this video. Be sure to follow him at Donnell Wrights across all social media for more theology-based content and more information about decolonizing your religion. Also, of course, without a doubt, all the time, forever, thank you so much to my lovely patrons for all of your support. If you would like an extended version of this video, yes, a longer version does exist somewhere, as well as unseen bits of my conversation with Donnell, you can head over to patreon.com/Teanna and it'll be there, behind a paywall, of course. I'm loving this wig so much, like so much. So I wore it in public yesterday, first of all. I like having a new identity every single day, but I feel like I have an event to go to tomorrow. I feel like I'm gonna wear it there too. How do y'all feel about it? Maybe one day, because this always happens, right? Like I'll wear a wig, really like it, and then change my real hair to look like it. So maybe one day I'll grow my hair out to look like this. But I wonder, A, would I be able to achieve this color without breaking the bank or my hair follicles? B, I don't know if my hair is thick enough to do all of this. Plus the curl pattern is different. And this is a synthetic wig altogether. So like a whole dream is being sold to me right now. But I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Be sure to leave your thoughts and your comments down below. Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, however you're feeling today. And subscribe for more content. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.